The time of the House of the Dragons has come, but what helped make it? When you watch a show like Game of Thrones or its prequel in the newly started House of the Dragon, you have to understand that there is a lot going on here from the start to finish. This isn't just a show that can happen, it's a show that's truly made to look as good as it does when it arrives on screen. You have to work with a lot of big pieces in order to get things a certain way. So, what did it all take to make the show so good that it got renewed for season 2 nearly instantly? We'll show you. Number 4. The start and the names. War is certain, or so Daemon Targaryen hopes. The cunningly arrogant prince leads a strategy meeting inside the torch-lit gloom of the Dragonstone castle. I want patrols along the island's perimeter, declares the glowering Daemon, clad in all black with long silver blonde hair. Conscript the dragon riders. They're capable fighters. We have Syrax, Caraxes, and Tyraxes, and... Matt Smith pauses. What's the name of the fort dragon again? He couldn't remember. Actor Emma Darcy, who portrays the free-spirited Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen, sympathizes. All the dragons have weird names with X's in them. I literally got to the point where I thought I was naming Santa's reindeer, Smith admits. House of the Dragon's character names and its dragons most definitely count as characters, have been a source of discussion. HBO's highly anticipated Game of Thrones prequel series is based on George R.R. Martin's 700-page book Fire and Blood, which chronicles the history of House Targaryen and its dragon-riding royal family. The author aims for authenticity, and real-life dynasties tend to have a lot of repetitive names and suffixes. England has 11 kings named Edward after all. So early in the writing process, Dragon showrunner Miguel Sapochnik pointed out to his fellow showrunner Ryan Condal that they were going to have, for instance, a Princess Rhaenyra and a Princess Rhaenys unless they started making tweaks to Martin's mythology. You know we have to change some names, Sapochnik told Condal, and Condal replied, we can't, which firmly established that the production would take a staunchly loyalist approach to adapting Martin's complex world. I've been a fan of these books for 20 years, Condal explains. I was a fan of Game of Thrones. I watched the pilot the night it aired on HBO and every episode after that. You can't follow Thrones. It's the Beatles. I'm setting out as a fan to make the thing I want to see, and I'm happy with what we've achieved. The Targaryens are like the Jedi in the Star Wars, where you heard about this time when they're plentiful and powerful and always wanted to see that, and now you get to. But making the first follow-up to what was arguably the biggest hit of the 21st century was an epic struggle nearly as high stakes and dramatic as the show itself. Just figuring out which story to tell from Martin's numerous books about Westeros and Essos took years of painstaking effort and a slew of talented writers and executives. Hundreds of millions were spent and a few heads ended up on spikes. And it all started the moment Game of Thrones began to end. Number 3. Pitching the next Game of Thrones. July 2016, HBO had just announced Game of Thrones would conclude with an 8th and final season, agreeing to showrunners David Benioff and Dan Weiss' creative plan. The network strategy discussion, led by the company's chief content officer, Casey Bloys, immediately pivoted to which project based on Martin's work could they make next. The goal was obvious, the mood anxious. HBO could attempt to build a Thrones franchise like Disney had done with Marvel and Star Wars, except HBO had never made a single spin-off series in its then 4-decade history, let alone a sprawling creative universe, and some in the company worried Thrones might be one-off sensation. The series launched as an underdog in 2011 and had a meteoric rise to become a ratings and pop culture phenomena, as well as the most Emmy-winning drama of all time. To follow Thrones with failure would be highly embarrassing and expensive, yet the rewards were potentially staggering. A content stream of titles that could span decades and generate billions in revenue. It's like that hypothetical investing question. Would you rather have a guaranteed $1 million or flip a coin for $1 billion? HBO decided to start flipping coins. They were understandably very nervous about failing and not living up to the original series. One insider recalls of the early development discussions. I don't think there was much confidence internally that Thrones was a franchise because the show was so big and so seminal. HBO's executive VP of drama Francesca Orsi remembers. We saw it as an opportunity to keep telling great stories, but not necessarily to try and replace Game of Thrones as the most epic show in history. Whether that was true or not, the pitches started to roll, and to their credit, they did cast a wide net, including some of the more comedic stories from the Game of Thrones universe to ones from the first long night that was set thousands of years before the main series ever happened. Some did get some work done, but in the end, it was the House of Dragon that went forward in full. Number 2. The showrunner and the creator. Ryan Condal admits he kinda sorta stalked George R.R. Martin. In 2013, the screenwriter was shooting an NBC pilot in Santa Fe. A self-described superfan of Martin's book, he reached out to the author and asked if he could buy him dinner. Martin agreed, and the two struck up a friendship. 5 years later, Martin sent Condal a life-changing message. He just said, "Hey, I'm in town for the Emmys. Let's grab a beer. I have a job for you if you want," Condal recalls, "and I lost my mind." The meeting was about the Dance of the Dragons, the title that would House of the Dragon. Martin was still determined to get his Targaryen epic made. George was frustrated because this was a story he really wanted to tell, Condal recalls. "I wasn't ready to give up on it," Martin says, "and I like Ryan's writing and he really knew my world well, which was a big thing." The next day, Condal received a call from his agents. They said, "Did you have a meeting with George R.R. Martin yesterday?" Condal says, "because HBO just called based on that and made an offer." The swiftness of HBO getting on board with Martin's desire to hire Condal was the beginning of a pivot in the author's relationship with the network. During the latter season of Game of Thrones and the early years of HBO hunting for a successor series, Martin sometimes felt out of the loop. But after the original show's Season 8 backlash, when many fans protested that the storylines felt rushed to conclusion, Martin had long advocated making Thrones 10 seasons long. And around the time HBO produced and rejected Blood Moon, all agree Martin's influence rose within the company. Put simply, HBO thought, hey, maybe we ought to listen more to that guy who created all of this. Wise thoughts. Who knows what would have happened if they listened to him more for Season 7 and 8. Number 1. The Targaryens. Finally, we have the focus. Mainly the focus on who would star in the story that would be the House of Dragons, obviously that the Targaryens, who we had only heard about in terms of the family at full power via the history lessons we got during Game of Thrones, but their time was now. Explains HBO and HBO Max content chief Casey Bloys, "I like the idea of focusing on one family, and obviously the Targaryens have a lot of drama to go around. I also like the echo of how empires can quickly fall. Those are the types of conversations we are having in our own country, which I don't think is anything I would have thought we'd be talking about 20 years ago." To solve a key problem with the story though, we're going to have time jumps in the first season and in the series itself to establish key things. "This is how you tell this story correctly," Condal says. "We're telling a story of a generational war. We set everything up so that by the time that this first sword stroke falls, you understand all the players. At the time of this writing, the players have been introduced via the pilot episode, which was watched by over 10 million people, and the show was nearly instantly renewed for a second season. For now, at least, the House of Dragon is a hit, but how long it stays that way will depend on the cast, the crew, and the dedication to the source material. So, what do you think? What do you think of this look at the House of the Dragon and all that has gone into making it so grand and special? Do you think that there is a lot more behind the scenes secret that will be unveiled as time goes on? What do you personally want to know about how the show was made? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and we'll see you next time on the channel.